Okay, good morning all. Good morning to all webinar attendees. Can you all hear me?
Yes, all can hear.
Okay, so we have about, good morning all. We have about 280 people from different enterprises, institutes of higher education, and fellow colleagues here with us today. A very warm welcome to all of you to the 12th Jobs and Skills Insight webinar on developing innovating learning cultures, exploring the new era of learning. I'm Raghu, your moderator for today for the webinar session. Together with me are Kelly and Suhaila, and we are from the Skills Development Division at SkillsFuture Singapore. What we at SSG do is to provide all Singaporeans with the opportunities to develop their potential throughout their lives. We believe that the skills, passion, and contributions of each and every individual Singaporean will drive Singapore's next phase of development towards an advanced economy and a more inclusive society. Regardless of which point you are in your life, skills for professionals and career development. Before we start, allow me to go through some administrative details. This entire webinar will take about 60 minutes. The researchers will be speaking for about 30 minutes, followed by discussion panel coming in from about 30 minutes. During the webinar, attendees are muted by default to avoid electronic feedback and interference. If you need help at any time, please send us a message by using the Q&A box. You may also post questions here for the panel discussion later, which if you are unable to answer all questions, choose the portal, SSG's LinkedIn page and YouTube channel. The slides will be sent to all attendees via email. Our researchers today who will be presenting are Dr. Arthur Chia and Dr. Xiaofang, who are senior researchers with the Institute of Adult Learning at Singapore University of Social Sciences. Arthur's research interests and theories are work and learning. Xiaofang's research interests include blended learning, workplace learning, and skills development. Today's topic is on developing innovative learning cultures, exploring the new era of learning. COVID-19 has required everyone to make changes, like it or not, and this will become the new norm. Customized for HR practitioners and the business. The webinar will discuss how some organizations in Singapore have improved, where they will touch on relations between the training providers and an enterprise. Without further ado, let us welcome Arthur and following him, Xiaofang, who will focus on 3 aspects of culture necessary in supporting and sustaining innovation and learning. Over to you, Arthur.
So thank you, Raghu. Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me and Xiaofang, and as well as Helen, this panel organized by SSG. So a very, very good morning and then welcome to all participants this morning. So by way of an extended introduction, I wish to say a few words about the work that we do at the Center for Work and Learning. Our research at CWL are guided by fundamental questions such as, how do people learn at work? What do they learn? What are the ways to describe and explain how and what people learn at work and for work? Why is learning important for individuals, organizations, and society? So these questions are important because they help us to enable and support learning for personal, organizational, and social development. Xiaofang, yeah, thank you. So in this session, we'll explore the idea of innovative learning culture and examine the practices that support or enable it based on the findings and analysis from 2 projects that we have recently completed. Research has shown that much innovation comes from workers' everyday activities and interactions to solve problems and address challenges. All these activities and interactions require and promote learning. Therefore, innovation and learning are correlated and they happen at work. For innovation and learning to happen or occur, there need to be practices, processes, systems, and frameworks to enable and support it. Hence, we look at all this in interconnected and related ways as innovative learning culture. So why does innovative learning culture matter? So many firms will need to transform their businesses by doing different things or do things differently, especially in this situation of COVID-19. It is important that workers be part of the transformation, even as business owners critically analyze or assess their firm's viability and explore various options and opportunities. Hence, a culture of innovation and learning is crucial in these difficult and challenging times to enable workers to use their skills, knowledge, and experience to solve problems and develop new ideas that address rising challenges and transform organizations and businesses. And workers need to be regarded as part of the solution rather than a cost issue or a problem. And we hope to support and enable business owners and managers to activate our workers' creativity, energies, and commitment that help organizations to transform. What are some of the features of innovative learning culture? A supportive learning environment. And this means a safe environment for workers to ask questions, to solve problems and explore new solutions. There's an openness to new ideas and certain freedom to make decisions about the work. Concrete learning and innovation practices and processes include exploring and experimenting to develop new products and services, keeping workers updated with trends and developments in the industry or market, helping workers to understand and serve customers better, creating opportunities to identify, analyze, and solve problems, and also opportunities for education and training. Leadership that encourages learning and innovation is demonstrated by managers who ask questions of and listen to workers. They enable or help workers to identify and analyze problems. They give feedback and support to workers by coaching or mentoring them. So how to enable or support innovative learning culture? We recognize workers are key because innovation and learning occur through their work and interaction in the process of solving problems or addressing certain challenges. We consider the ways to support and enable workers to solve problems and address challenges. For example, by giving workers more autonomy or freedom to explore, to experiment, and to do their work, provide feedback and guidance to do new things or do things differently. The partnerships and collaborations with third parties like R&D agencies, such as SimTech, or technology providers and training providers are important in supporting and enabling workers to innovate and learn. The central role of workers in innovative learning culture is demonstrated in the following case study example of Sunrise Nursing Home. So Sunrise Nursing Home is a charity-funded organization that seeks to offer individualized care by creating flexibility in daily activities for its elderly residents and increasing their independence and autonomy. For example, Sunrise Home enables residents to have their meals whenever they wish. It creates individually customized therapy and exercise programs where residents could track their own exercise schedules and progress. They're delivered through new systems like Gym Tonic, which is a personalized training rehabilitation system, and the Tutti Buff, which is an automated bathing machine. But all these are only possible because Sunrise workers took ownership and solved problems along the way and developed new solutions and practices and engaged residents on those systems. The staff or workers at all levels were encouraged and able to ask questions, identify and analyze problems. And I think what's most important thing is the quality of their work, right? It's very high. And staff do not rush to do or complete their work. Staff and managers talk a lot about their residents as individuals. And new initiatives are developed organically by staff. Next slide, please. So the conditions and qualities of innovative learning culture are also demonstrated in this next example of workers in a 3D printing company. So this is a relatively small company with less than 20 employees. The company offers a range of commercial 3D printing systems and services that are used by the clients in the biomedical, architecture, and manufacturing sectors. The staff are generally young. Most are below 35 years old. They are highly motivated, curious, and passionate about the technology. They have to figure out many things by themselves. This new and emerging field where problems, unknown and difficult situations constantly arise, but also opportunities and possibilities. Workers are able to do new and unconventional things. For example, they organized a scientific seminar that also showcased the company's technology and services. And the seminar attracted people and customers from different sectors and enabled the company to move into new businesses. The work environment in this company is characterized by a high degree of workers' discretion and autonomy, meaning that workers are able to make decisions about their work. They improvise a lot and they give suggestions to management on how to do their work and new business ideas. Management provides assistance and guidance whenever needed, so the innovations tend to be bottom-up, exploratory, and experimental. In a nutshell, we can see that there are commonalities and differences between the two case study examples in terms of the nature of innovation, work culture, and characteristics and quality of learning that lead to new practices, solutions, and business opportunities. So both examples showcase bottom-up innovation, expensive learning, or learning what is not yet there, and high levels of staff engagement, which characterize innovative learning culture. So here are some reflections for HR and L&D professionals. Innovative learning culture reframes the whole idea of education and training from a requisitioning perspective, which asks deficit type of questions about what workers lacked and could therefore be filled up by education and training, to looking at organizational needs informed by innovation and learning, which seek to develop workers' capabilities and improve the conditions and quality of work. Hence, it asks questions like what the organization aspires to be, how to engage and inspire workers to do things differently or do different and new things, how to value workers and enhance their capacity to make decisions in responsible and independent ways. So as part of the project on innovative learning culture, we have developed a heuristic called 7 Enablers to help us think about innovative learning culture and to put it into practice. The main thrust of the 7 Enablers are to enable recognition of workers in innovation and learning through empowerment, communication, and collaboration, to think about the role of managers and supervisors in innovation and learning in terms of tolerance for failure and recognizing innovation and learning as critical to the organization and business, and to consider how the workplace can be an environment for innovation and learning by seeking an alignment, enabling knowledge flows, and understanding of the nature of the changing nature of the work. So in the next 2 slides, I will not go into the details of the 7 enablers, but they can be found in this deck of slides, which I believe will be distributed to participants of this webinar. So over to you, Xiaofang.
Thank you, Arthur, for the insightful sharing. So on top of the central role of workers in developing innovative learning culture, I would like to talk about how the critical role that training providers can play to strengthen the central role of workers in developing such cultures. As we all know that our workers are always sent back for some training during their work to develop their capabilities or improve their performance. So during that such training, what the training providers can do to enable the development of innovative cultures. So this section of the sharing will be used one training course as a case study to demonstrate the importance of the partnership and collaborations between training providers and industry organizations to enable the development of innovative learning cultures. Okay. So this is a course for HR professionals. The aim of this course is to train the HR professionals in the public service with at least 5 years working experience to prepare them for the upcoming management role. So at the end of the course, a lot of learners share with us how the courses are bring some changes to their own workplaces. We only select one learner's sharing here. Macy share with us what she has done some innovative changes at her workplaces with what she learned from this course. So through work-related assignments, that Macy could apply the knowledge she had learned from data analytics to solve some real workplace problems. As she mentioned, that she can make certain decisions for better allocation of HR resources within her own organizations, which she couldn't do before the training from this course. So such an innovative learning requires a design of close collaboration and partnership between training providers and industry organizations. For example, during Macy's learning of the work-related, doing the work-related assignments, both adult educators and workplace mentors needed to work together very closely to provide the guidance and the feedback to make sure the application is really workable and relevant at her own workplaces. And then besides these work-related assignments, during the observation of the delivery of the course, we also identify many other forms of partnership between training providers and industry organizations or employers to enhance, to enable the learners to make innovations at their own organization. For example, the training providers mingle these HR professionals with financial professionals from another course to expose these HR professionals to the industry transformation that's to correspond to the changing HR roles they have to take at their own workplaces. And besides this mingling, these training providers also invited some industry experts from private sectors to share with these HR professionals about the current industry needs and the trend to prepare them for the possible changes that or innovation they have to make or experience at their workplaces. And lastly, that the training providers adopted very innovative pedagogies. During our observation, we find that the adult educator in the classroom took a very facilitative role by standing at back of the classroom, but to encourage the learners or our experienced HR professionals to share with each other about their different HR practices to some similar HR issues they are facing in their different organizations. So such kind of sharing really allow the learners to learn from each other, and also possible for them to bring back these different practices into their own organizations to make changes or even innovations. Yeah, so all in all, these elements together requires really a close partnership or collaboration between training providers and the industry organizations or employers. So all this putting together in the design of this course enhances the authenticity of the learning for these learners. So with this high authenticity, the learners have more possibilities or are more possibly to be empowered to bring back the changes or innovations for their routine work at their own organizations. So drawing on this sharing by both Arthur and me so far at this moment, our researchers would like to take some audacity to make some recommendations for the different parties involved in developing such innovative learning cultures. So for example, we want to make some recommendation for our training providers at this point of time. I mean, particularly at this point of time, I think as training providers could consider to rethink about the purpose of learning and training, particularly in preparing these learners for the constantly changing needs of the industry. For example, during this COVID-19, a lot of organizations have to change their business models. So as training providers, how can we respond to these changes? Are we responding to it very quickly? or a little bit passively, or you may reflect on a few questions like what have you done to correspond to these changes, or what are you doing now, or even think further, what can you do in the future if these unexpected changes or situation happen again. Yeah. So in order to correspond with these needs from the constantly changing from the industry, we also suggest that maybe training provider could consider to create some fluid channel with industry to enable some ongoing discussion, conversation, and communication. What we mean fluid here is means that this kind of channel could be both formal and can also be informal. It really depends on how this partnership was built up and maintained between the training providers and our industry partners. Okay, for employers, we also want to contribute a few recommendations. For example, drawing on the 7 enablers as shared by Asa. We think that employers could consider to develop some informed principles and adaptive practices to encourage workers to make innovations and learning within organizations. And also, employers could consider to put a little bit more effort to facilitate the workplace processes by providing more guidance and mentorship to encourage the learner to lead the innovations. Or even we can create some learning communities for learners to learn from others or from each other in their organizations to initiate such innovations. Okay, lastly, we want to share a few reflections with our SSG. SSG actually is very pivotal in working with training providers and employers. So from the course accreditation perspective, we researchers suggest that maybe SSG could be more specific to evaluate how strong the partnership is established between training providers and employees in a course design, because we believe that the stronger the partnership, the better or the higher the quality of the learning, and the more possibility that the learner may bring back to their workplaces to make to do different things, make innovations, or make some positive changes. And lastly, we also feel that SSG could continue the support for our innovation and learning practices. For example, continue to conduct some workshops to demonstrate to our individual employees or training providers or employers on how to solve the real workplace problem in an innovative way, take a lead position by SSG, and also in working with these different parties, whether SSG could be a little bit advanced to make some job and work design to correspond to the changing needs of our industries for the benefits of our individual employees and also the employers, of course, the training providers in between. Yeah, so that's the sharing for both Asa and me today. So now I would like to pass over back to our SSG colleague to facilitate for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Arthur and Xiaofang, for the great sharing on developing innovative learning cultures. We now move on to the next segment of the webinar, the discussion panel time, which I think all of you have been waiting. Do post your questions into the QA box. Allow me to introduce our moderator, Ms. Selina Quinn, who currently leads the Human Resource Division at the National Environment Agency. Selina has more than 20 years of experience spanning human resource workforce development, learning and organization development, business development, both the private and public sector. Found, who is not a stranger to us, who heads the Research Center for Work and Learning at the Institute of Adult Learning, Singapore University of Social Sciences. Helen's research interests include learning in and across different environments, pedagogical innovations, workplace learning, learning in high technology environments, professional learning, and learning through collaborative activity. Over to you, Selina. We can.
Thank you, Raghu, and thank you, SSG, for inviting me to this panel. And hi, some familiar faces on the panel, as well as familiar names in the audience. So hello, everybody, and thanks for being with us. Right, I think the two researchers, Arthur, Xiaofang, have shared two spectrums of innovative learning culture. One is the role of the training provider in actually helping train up more innovative workers, I suppose, and then they go back to the workplace and hopefully participate and I guess propagate that kind of culture. After sharing, focus on then the workplace and the work environment and how leaders, managers, as well as staff, workers themselves can participate and together create that kind of innovative culture in the environment. So I kind of see this as two sides of the coin, I suppose, and then let's have a discussion on how do we then bridge this, right? So I'm going to just kickstart this panel with questions for each of our panelists, or Helen can also answer this question. And I really want to welcome questions from the audience as well. I think this panel is really for you. So I'll just kickstart and happy to for you to key in your questions in the Q&A chat as well. Right. So Arthur, I'm just going to start with the elephant in the room, right? We are still in the midst of the whole COVID-19 pandemic, and the fact that we are having this webinar really is testament of that as well, and probably required all of us to innovate and create this platform. But you made a point on that one of the reasons we need an innovative learning culture is really that we can deal with unexpected challenges, right? So we need to have a culture to deal with unexpected challenges. But my question really is this a chicken and egg thing? Which comes first? Do we need to have an innovative learning culture, and therefore when a crisis like COVID like that hits, we're able to respond, adapt, and then innovate, right? So if we don't have the culture, we don't have the skills, we will be a little bit challenged to respond. So that's one perspective. Or as COVID has also proven, the challenging circumstances has kind of forced the whole world to be innovative and to learn. So maybe just hear your views on that,
Yeah, thank you, Selena, for the very interesting and difficult question, I must say, because you are right on both accounts, right? That the situation actually forces people and organizations. Situation forces itself on us, right? And I think even organizations or companies, even people, communities that are deemed to be progressive and innovative and adaptable, right, are also on their toes, right? So which comes first, right? Whether do organizations which are quote unquote more innovative and on the edge of things, are they necessarily any better off to survive this situation like COVID, or will COVID create innovative people and communities and organizations out of all of us, right? Well, yeah, I think it's an interesting question, but I think when we talk about, or when I talked about innovative learning culture, I actually refer to the whole suite of processes and systems and ways of thinking about how to enable and support innovation and learning. So I still believe that once if we are able to focus on getting the systems and practices and processes right, thinking right about supporting innovation and learning. I mean, of course, right, the business, other business operations and aspects are important, but if we are able to also focus on that, I think we should be in a better shape, to survive and to adapt to the situation like COVID and other stuff. So chicken or egg? I think the chicken comes first. Or if the chicken crosses the road.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Arthur. I don't know. Helen, do you have anything to add to that? Oh, you need to unmute your mic, Helen.
Apologies for that. Okay. Yes, well, I mean, it is both. It is very much the chicken and egg question. We do need, certainly COVID has pushed all of us, individuals and organisations. There's no, the evidence is pretty clear on that. But I think my suspicion would be that those organisations who were already at the forefront of innovation and valuing of learning opportunities possibly are doing better. It would be an interesting thing to find out.
Yeah, thanks, Helen, and thanks, Arthur. And I guess maybe from your responses, I guess it's probably a bit of both, right? Those organizations perhaps were already kind of more advanced in their journey on having an innovative culture, perhaps were able to adapt a little bit quicker. But I think the human spirit has been amazing, right? To respond and adapt to the whole situation. And I guess many HR practitioners in the audience, and probably like me, we've had to deal with just figuring it out and kind of managing. And I think, and the heartening part is that I guess the human spirit has risen. And probably how do we then now capture all this great learning? How do we capture this the transformation that has already taken place and probably we are grappling with, and then embedding it into that system and processes that we talked about, and then not losing the essence of what has been kind of forced circumstances has forced us to evolve through COVID. Right? I think that would be interesting, and so perhaps then we can link that to the areas that you identified, the systems, the processes, and try to, I guess, reverse engineer. I mean, that's a terrifying word for researchers, I'm sure, but for practitioners, I think in a sense that probably needs the practice to the research. Yeah, so thanks for that, and welcome other questions, but maybe let me just take a quick look. I think we've had some questions. Maybe we can jump to that as well. Yeah, perhaps this question from Andrew Cheong, I think the quite useful one. It says, with more staff working from home due to the pandemic, how do we motivate employees to learn when they are working from home? How do you convince management to support employees learning? Perhaps this is a question anyone can pick up, right? Whether it's a training provider's perspective or even from workplace learning.
Can I volunteer Xiaofang to deal with this question?
How can employees be motivated to? Actually, I think that this kind of, as you have mentioned, the innovative culture it's highly related to the company culture. Yeah, if the companies are already on the way to nurture such innovative culture, I think the employees may have a higher motivation to always to keep learning and make innovations. However, if you have to make innovations just because of the COVID-19 or pandemic, you are already in a sort of reactive position to these changes and the crisis. So, for example, in our organization for researchers, what I can share is from my own experience. Yeah, our organizations, I would say that we have very strong this kind of learning culture. Our management from the top down always encourage us to join the webinars or seminars, even during this period, since everything is converting online, so we can still participate in another form. So this kind of support from the management really a key factor to motivate our employees to continue their learning even during this special period. Yeah, that's my experience. Maybe Helen, you have something to add?
Yeah, Selena, just to build on what Xiaofang was saying, could I connect this with another question that was asked in the, Yes. So the question was, what is the organizational capability needed to build innovation and learning, which I think is a core to what we're talking about. And obviously the relationship to COVID is clear. It goes back to our chicken and egg question. So the 7 enablers that I spoke about are key, but there are also, you know, other ways. You can look at this in so many different ways, right? In different perspective stances. Another way of thinking about this that's sort of built into those 7 enablers are things like the design of the work, the need to capture experience and appropriate time and space for opportunities to reflect and discuss, and overriding that, a vision of the type of organisation that the organisation wants to be. Let me unpack those a little bit. So, for example, years ago, I was in a top-end hotel doing some research, and it was just amazing. They had a very clear vision, right from their vision and mission statements about being a learning organisation, and that was real, right? So often these things are statements and stay at that level. In this organisation, you could see it in effect at every level of the organisation, down to the chefs supporting their trainee cooks, doing things like even where they stand to keep an eye on what the trainee chefs are doing, so they can just casually wander over and make a suggestion and go back to what they were doing, as well as providing them with challenges, giving them the opportunity to contribute to menu items and so on. So they were an integral part of the team. That sense of belonging is really critical. And especially when you're working from home and that sense of isolation, if you don't have that sense of belonging, it's very difficult to be part. Being part of something is critical for learning and innovation. So when I talk about job design, I'm referring to things like the capacities for reflection are in various ways designed into various job roles. So if, for example, you have a very tailorist organisation where things are broken down into minute tasks, like in call centres, what is that to reflect on? It's all SOPs, you're operating at a very superficial reactive level in many instances. So not there. What workers need are opportunities to exercise discretionary power, you know, to make decisions, to make judgments, to discuss with each other and so on. And these are some ways forms of reflection, as well as I'm suggesting that the organisation should be creating opportunities to time or reflection on various incidents, right? In the literature, they're referred to as critical incidents. But a critical incident can be something as severe as a loss of life or close call, through to some missed opportunity or something that could be improved. You know, it can be relatively in for this type of reflection. I often talk to my students about saying, look, you can even use regular meeting times. They're already there in the structure. What you do is add in this segment as part of the meeting, or you create, set aside a particular meeting related to a particular event that is already part of the structure and the operational procedures. So this sort of the experience is important. So means of capturing the experience and to facilitate that sharing of information and then deeper reflection become important. And it's from these sort of things that the learning and innovation, these things are so closely connected, can propagate, if you like. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. So you mentioned about critical incident, right? And I guess COVID-19 really is one of that major critical incidents. And would it therefore be a little bit like what we talked about earlier, that using COVID-19 experience and what we've all gone through, really then using that to, let's say, reflect on what each of us have done, and then what we have learned in that process, and then try to now kind of structure it back to how Arthur talks about the workplace conditions. What in my practitioner terms is reverse engineering, right? To look at now the experience, the critical incident that has already taken place, how we've responded to it, and then what can we learn from it so that we're now better prepared, or even for something else, that some other curveball that this pandemic or something else can throw us. Is that what a critical incident would be?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as you say, it provides the ideal material, such rich material for such reflection. But I think it has to be tied back to the a few things here, tied back to the vision and mission. For quite a number of organisations, they've had to make quite radical changes and shifts in their markets, in the way they reach their market, and so on. So that's indicative of great agility. It goes back to like what's been going on in the organisation, what we talked about before, what's been going on in the organisation to enable them to do that. So it links back to Arthur's example, say with Sunrise and the 3D organisation, where workers are valued, their opinion is valued, it's listened to. If you have an organisation where there's a fear of voicing your opinion, a fear of trial and error, then you don't have a basis for such discussion. So without that basis, then creating such opportunities for reflection becomes a mechanical exercise rather than a meaningful exercise. So it's the conditions that need to be created, like all those 7 enablers that we're talking about, to enable really meaningful contribution and genuine discussion and reflection and critique and bouncing off of ideas and so on.
So what my takeaway from what you just said is really the softer side, right? It's about the leaders, the managers, the supervisors. That's what Arthur had shared in his presentation, that create that condition and create the environment for that risk-taking and that learning, reflection, etc. Yeah. Whether it's a big crisis like COVID or something much smaller scale, to learn from every incident, right? But I guess going back to what Arthur shared, it's also something about structures and systems in the organization, right? And a full alignment, right? And so Helen, you talked about the vision and all that. So there needs to be a congruence and alignment in the whole organization. And there's a question from Andy Tan that where does knowledge management fit in, right? And how does it support building a learning culture? Is that about capturing our learning? Maybe just a quick response to that from Arthur. What role does knowledge management play, and how should an organization's TM effort be designed to support building of a learning culture?
Yeah, I guess just to pick up from where Helen has stopped and continue on with your point about alignment, right? I guess if you have a mission statement that focuses on or emphasizes on innovation and learning, that puts workers at the center of what we're doing, right? And also emphasis on creating the right conditions for innovation and learning. I think the question of alignment then becomes, how do you align your practices, your systems with your broader vision and mission statement, right? And where your organization aspires to be. And I think alignment, as in research literature and academic literature, which refers to as constructive alignment, right? It's a process, it's a continuous process that managers and business owners, as well as workers ourselves, have to be engaged in that process of aligning our work, aligning the systems and processes, and making changes and adapting as we move towards, right, those broader visions and missions. So alignment is key, as you mentioned, Selina, that how what are the ways to align our practices and processes, and that is a continuous process, and it has to be part of the organizational KPI, I think, right? To ensure that things are actually moving towards where the organization aspires to be. And what's the role then of knowledge management system in all this? So, and I think knowledge management system would be, yeah, I think they would have to enable people to have that information and the transparency of processes and decision making, right? And so that people can, and staff and workers can innovate, right? I mean, to what extent would I know whether if I try and do something radically different, would it be seen as, stupid or crazy or punished? How do you, as part of knowledge management systems, what are those kind of allowances or affordances that, in terms of information and support that would enable me to do different things or do things differently, right? And I think knowledge management systems do play a part, not just in providing data or tools, but it sense that based on the information it provides and the processes that it supports would create or send that signal and create the kind of sensibility for workers to be able to innovate and learn. So knowledge management system, I think, plays a role not just in processing data information, but we've got to think about how knowledge management system creates that broader environment or sensibility of for innovation and learning. So that's my short take on this quite, I think, important but also interesting and complex issue.
Can I add something to that? Have we got time?
Yeah, sure, Helen.
I think that the behind a knowledge management system is often an invisible and implicit understanding of learning. So often we think of learning as acquiring knowledge. It belongs to the individual. It is something that the individual holds. It's a product, right? And so language like, oh, you need to acquire, or I have acquired the knowledge and skills for, is very common. And it's what drives, I think, quite a lot of different knowledge management systems. And there's often behind it also a sense that, well, we have to capture all this implicit knowledge, all this this expertise that's inside people's heads and get it out of them. So we capture that. And so certainly there are, to some extent, that is a valuable and important process that needs to be in place. And the role of it and the importance of it varies across organisations and the type of work. But there's a real danger in it as well, because it's trying to proceduralise all sorts of fine-tuned judgments and decision-making processes that can't be. So we need to enable opportunities for exchange, and it's the problem solving where the knowledge is co-constructed. So behind this is an understanding of learning. Is learning participatory? Is it about knowledge co-construction? As Arthur talks about, workers are key to all of this. And part of the reason for that is because as they solve problems, as they interact, as they identify workarounds, through problematic red tape that we all deal with, then what they're doing is co-constructing knowledge, right? Whether it is between them and system, or whether it is between them and peers, or external people or whoever. So I think any knowledge management system needs to think about what is that's informing their decisions about knowledge management. In addition, that will inform their selection of the technology that drives that. And so technology that allows for this interactive, collaborative possibilities and the clever and strategic use of data mining and data analytics that is possible in today's world become important.
All right, thanks, Arthur, and thanks, Helen, for that. I think Arthur talked about KPI just now, right? And I think all this is, I mean, we all face this, right? I think it's HR, learning practitioners, researchers, what is the outcome? What's the bottom line? And what are the tangible contributions that all this, plays in an organization? And there's an interesting question by Megan. And I guess it's very reflective of the current reality. And I thought this is worth maybe for us to just discuss a bit. Reflecting on what's critical to businesses right now during this downturn. How does an innovative culture bring tangible results to a company? Right? And I guess this is also linked to how do we then motivate or get buy-in from our management to support learning in a sense, and also the whole bit about leadership and culture and the conditions. How do we encourage or promote innovation in a panic-stricken times when survival outweighs other priorities? And of course, I would dare say that learning is even more important. I mean, that's why we're here. But I think let's maybe perhaps discuss some tangible ways and that we can maybe help one another address in the current crisis. I'm going to open it to anyone in the panel.
Yeah, Arthur, do you want to start with this?
Well, confession, right? I don't like KPIs, but I think it is absolutely necessary for for order, right? I mean, for organizations people to move together. But I also think that KPIs can be better defined. There's definitely room for improving the way we define what those KPIs are, right? How they're related to the overall mission and vision. KPIs, rather than becoming a kind of gateway lock around a chain around our neck sometimes, right? My take is that it can be more meaningfully constructed in a sense of to what extent our staff engaged in constructing those KPIs, right? For themselves or for the organizations, and to what extent are KPIs aligned with to the innovation and learning goals that the company or organization aspires towards, right? And KPIs are not necessarily need not be just hard numbers. I mean, yeah, if your sales, right, hard numbers are important, but generally it can also be more broadly defined in terms of to what extent does it benefit, right, developed workers or staff capacities or capabilities, and how can we showcase those developments in workers' capabilities and growth as a professional or even as a member of the organization. So I think how we define KPIs, how we use them are important aspects, and that's my take.
Yeah, well, thank you, Arthur. Helen, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, KPIs can be very problematic because they're often dealt with mechanistically, as Arthur was saying. It's a numbers game. How many have you achieved or whatever? So the broadening of KPIs is important. It opens up the space for learning and innovation. And again, we go back to the alignment question between the vision and mission and the strategic direction of the organisation and the criticality. Obviously, there are key areas where numbers are important, right? Because it's the survival of the business. But we have to think beyond that as well. It's like the question about efficiency and productivity. Right? So if we think only along those lines, then which is like centuries old now, then we need to be much more open in our thinking and conceptualization of the way forward. So the alignment about where does the organisation want to be? What does the organisation want to be known as? Does it want to be known as an open, innovative, leading organisation? Or does it want to just meet certain very tightly defined KPIs? So yeah, I think it's an organisation-wide thing, and it either closes down or opens up opportunities for learning and innovation.
Yeah, thanks, Helen and Arthur. So I guess one of the points that you talked about really is about how an outcome from innovative or actually encouraging learning organizations is really about staff capability, staff capacity to do more, to learn more, and I guess if I put it in the COVID context, really is to be adaptable and agile to really navigate whatever comes. And you know, we've all had to do things that we've never done before, learn technology that we've never used before, and really just push us to learn. And I guess going back to that is going to the management. How do we continue to encourage people to learn? Really is about building your capacity to innovate and to learn and to adapt to the situation. I guess that's an important business outcome that whether it's in a not crisis or non-crisis state, I think that's important. Yeah, I think and I think we talked a lot about the conditions, and really it's about alignment, leadership. What is that, right? And I think is there, maybe we can just close off with some addressing some broader questions, and perhaps bringing in where the role of the training providers play, right, in how shaping workplace experiences, right? Because we've talked, I think Xiaofang talked a little bit about how these training providers or well, HR or learning practitioners can work with training providers to design better learning experiences, which are kind of with industry input, there's experts, there's cross-functional sharing, as well as to create a little bit more innovative mindset and open up the minds of learners. But is there a role that training providers can play in helping to design workplace experiences, right? Because I think it's just like the time we've spent talking, right? A lot of time is, at the end of the day, a lot of innovation and learning takes place at work, right? Versus going to the training provider to get trained and then I become innovative. It doesn't quite work that way. So Xiaofang, maybe you can wrap up and share with us, is there a role, and how do you see this shaping up, and how training providers can play a role, a bigger role in helping organizations to shape the culture, or maybe their leaders to open up? Because I think there are also some questions really about, how do our leaders think that innovative, how ready are our leaders, for innovation in organizations? Maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah. So actually in my sharing, I emphasized on the partnership between training providers and industries. So for training providers, I think they are not only a service provider, they are also a kind of business for their owners. So this kind of partnership and between the training provider and the organizations emerged out as very important in order to enable or empower our workers to be possible to make some innovations in their own organizations. However, as you mentioned, that it doesn't happen automatically. Then what's missing there? Yeah, so that, like what I mentioned, that this kind of training from my personal perspective should be contextualized. Yeah, so a lot of training tends to be a generic or broader. Yeah, yes, it can apply to many industry sectors, especially for some soft skills. However, across these sectors, these skills are represented in different ways. So how can we, I think training provider at this critical juncture, they really need to sit down and reflect on how can we move forward to better cope or even lead in this kind of training to facilitate our individual employees or employers to make innovations in their organizations. That's my view. Maybe Helen has some different views.
I can give a quick example if we have time. So many assignments, assessments are designed with something quite specific in mind, especially when we look at WSQ. However, again, it's about how we think about assessment. So if we think about assessment as a learning experience, and as authenticity has been really key in designing the assessment. So a broad thing, but that has criteria that applies to all different experiences is what is required. For example, in the HR course that Xiaofang spoke about, it was the need to identify a workplace learning issue, that they could apply the specific skills and capabilities they were learning to that, right? So, and for example, in the course that I teach, I have a similar experience. I ask learners to identify a workplace learning issue. They have to go away and interview people. They have to design a learning intervention, and they have to develop an evaluation plan. So that's standard for everyone. The criteria are also standard about, you know, because it's a master's course, it relates to things like critical reflection of the literature, you know, a doable, solvable workplace learning issue, and so on. So you identify what the criteria are that are important, and assessment rubrics are really useful for those sort of purposes. So thinking about assessment not as a reproduction of knowledge, but as how you can combine theory and practice, and these sort of authentic opportunities allow learners to do that. It also implicitly means that in the learning face-to-face, whether it's synchronous or actual classroom face-to-face, there's a lot of sharing of learner experiences. And learners, as Xiaofang was saying, learn a great deal from each other, things that they take back to their own workplaces.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Xiaofang. So I think, you know, thanks for all the great questions. I know we've not been able to address all the questions, but I think we will take it back and we'll work with SSG to answer these questions and put it out to everyone. Right. So maybe I can just really sum up really 3 key things from my takeaway and from learning from our researchers as well. Right. I think one is that we need to create a learning culture in an organization. It's really about leadership, alignment across right from the top, putting in place systems and processes to support that. And if we don't have a blank slate and we're working backwards now in a COVID situation, really then it's about how to capture that learning from this critical incident called COVID. But how have we learned, and what are the good things we can tease out from here and embed it and align it into the future, right? So that we ready ourselves for the future, right? And I think how do we then capture the benefit of that and to post it to and get the buy-in from management and to our staff? I think these things have to work together, right? And then thirdly, as we work with training providers, we will continue to provide what we call the I suppose traditionally training, where we go for training, right? Really, it's how do we embed more of the workplace issues and embed that in the actual training programs. And I think that's really my third point. So those are my 3 takeaways, and I hope you found this useful. So back to you. Thank you, panelists, and thank you for all those questions from the participants too. So back to you, Raghu.
Thank you, everyone. And we've come to the end of this webinar session. We are very grateful to have Arthur, Xiaofang, Helen, and Selina join us this morning to share insights and address some of the questions posed. To all the webinar attendees, I hope you had a good takeaway from this session. We would also like to encourage you to join us in our subsequent webinars, as we will be sharing on different topics every month. We will appreciate it greatly if you could also share with us your thoughts on the topics you'd like for us to discuss in future webinars. Before we close, I would like to invite you to take a quick survey. Your feedback, which will be kept confidential, is very important to us and will help us improve our future webinars to serve you better. If you're interested to find out about the initiatives that SkillsFuture has, please refer to the link to the Enterprise portal for jobs and skills on the screen. We hope you will join us again in our upcoming webinar, which will be next month. The next webinar is on enhancing skills development through adaptive learning. Session will be posted on my SkillsFuture portal, SSG's LinkedIn page, and YouTube channel. The slides will be sent to you via email in the next few days. Once again, my name is Raghu, and together with with me, Kelly and Suhaila. We want to thank the established researchers from IAL and Selina for her support in this webinar. Meanwhile, stay safe and healthy, everyone, and see you all next month. Bye.